Hey everybody, Bo Stapley here. In this video, we're going to go over the second session of my D&D campaign. Previously, when we left our adventurers, they were helping little old Ida, a little old halfling lady, and her soup kitchen, while also trying to scout out prospects to see who would be good people to work for them when they were summoned by the city wizard named Droll. We picked up with them heading into the city walls, past the Jolly Dragon where we ended last session, where they had their trivia night, headed into the massive plaza of this Italian-looking city with white marble buildings and cobblestone streets, and they entered through the market and went to this square tower next to the Capitol building, which is about 6 to 8 stories tall. And they knocked on the stone door, and unbeknownst to them, a little voice came out in an Italian accent asking what their request was about. And then the door opened, and they met Frug, who is a gnome artificer for the wizard Droll. He's like a mad scientist, old guy, who led them up to meet with Droll. And when they met with Droll, he doesn't look like he's from around here. He has, I'll put a picture up over here, but he looks like he has like tattoos on his face and on his head and seems very regal and stoic. And he introduces himself, letting the party know that he's summoned them here because he actually knows Enzo's dad, who is our warlock half-elf who owns the Jolly Dragon. And his dad helped him pay for schooling. And so his dad asked if he could give him a favor, if he could give any work towards his son. So he told him that this is him fulfilling that request for them. And he presents that the unicorn Gladtiri has been kidnapped and he would like them to go retrieve it. And that their last known whereabouts were they were down south about a day's journey. To which Waldo immediately accepts, and the group seems very excited. On their way down, Frug is working anxiously on his project, which he's trying to build a music box. Players don't know that, and the artificer assumes he knows what he's trying to do, and he records a message on the machine and tells him to wait 5 minutes. So he anxiously sits with both knees up and elbows on his stool, and he flips over an hourglass and waits the 5 minutes before he opens the box, to which he'll hear the recorded message. I thought that was great way to tie in our artificer Tink, played by my cousin, with this gnome. Maybe they'll be able to become friends and share knowledge. I hope that happens in the future. So they ended up leaving. I thought they were going to just head on out straight towards the unicorn. Droll did mention that he would like them to return with all haste. One thing I did heavily mess up was the job was only supposed to be 200 gold pieces total and potentially a magic item for the wizard. But I actually said 200 gold pieces per person, which there's 6 of them, so that's 1,200 gold pieces instead of 200 gold pieces. But they found a way to help me with that, so stay tuned. They then went to Alloy General, the general store, to sell some of their potions that they won from the trivia night. And I didn't really have anything planned for what my proprietor of my store would say or do. I just had their name and a slight, like, how would this person act and what their wants are. So I felt like I did fine as far as just making that up on the spot. I also loved role-playing them selling the potions, as they had a distort value, which made the object worth twice its value in the person selling or buying's eyes. So that was really fun for me to play. And they also chimed in to make up a really grand story, which I thought was very comical. After they sold and got a little bit of gold out of that, they decided to forge the wizard Droll's signature so they could get some horses to ride faster south. And they didn't roll very high on their forgery check. I think you rolled a 10, but Alloy Barnes, the stables, bought it, and they seemed very upset that the wizard once again is making demands without giving clear instructions, as it just said to provide transport. It didn't say how many or anything like that, or for how long. So that really got my players interested in what the dynamic is between Alloy Barnes and the wizard Droll. And so they headed straight south for about 25 miles, and then it bends east for another 5, and that's when the sun went down right at 30 miles. And so they made camp. Waldo, the verbal druid, just walked out to his space and just asked, "Oh, is this a good place? So can we camp here?" And I thought that was very funny for him. In his simple mind, would just ask permission before doing something. And since there was no response, he assumed then that was a yes. So they made camp, and they saw some other fires in the distance. They were backed up against a woods wall, and then in front of them, there was like an open meadow, and they saw another flame on the other side of the meadow. So Tink decided that the human artificer was going to go check that out while everyone else made camp and started their rest. So that was our first time splitting the party. I thought I handled it well. We started off with Tink going, and the wizard Wink's familiar named Murmur, which we homebrewed to be like a little fire elemental that glowed, went with him to kind of light his path for him, and creeped up. And one note is that Droll mentioned was that the group that has supposedly taken this unicorn's name was the Chain of Odokef, which is one of the biggest mercenary groups in this country, and they're heavily used in armies and trainings, and they have a lot of their hands in a lot of different businesses. So that was kind of interesting. So then we cut back to the fire as Tink made his way, and Olivax, the Dragonborn Paladin, and my cousin, who's playing a rogue named Fadan, who's a bugbear, got into a little argument about the right and wrong ways to do things, as forging was not the correct play there. They should have just been honest, and it's really funny to watch that dynamic play out. They kind of started to go in circles at one point, so I did cut them off, and I said, we'll pick up here later. Let's go to another part of the group, to Wink and Waldo, and I thought that went well, just giving everyone a chance to speak, since there is 6 of them. When you have long conversations like that, we're playing online, so I have to just go off of their facial expressions as far as like when's the right time to do things, and I felt like we did really well with just going back and forth between everybody. So then after that conversation, we cut back to Tink, who was scouting out these other people who made camps close to them. He heard about 4 or 5 voices talking around a fire, and he heard the word chain, which tipped him off to be, this is the group we're looking for. I originally had planned for them just to meet up with them during the day, but since they went shopping, I just moved it to nighttime so they could find the group a little faster, just because I didn't want to go so many sessions with them not having a combat. So they decided at the end of the session that they were going to go scout out this group as a whole and see what they were doing. I did have Murmur, the name of the familiar of Wink, since he said that he wanted him to scout how many people were over there. I did have him do a flyby so he could give them the intel that he required. So there was about 4 or 5 of them, and they did see like a carriage but no horses, and that kind of matched their suspicions with they probably trapped this unicorn in the carriage and then pushed it all this way, making camp, trying to stay off the roads and things like that. So that's where we ended the session. I'm excited to see how they're going to handle this combat. I think they're going to steamroll them, and that's kind of the point of the combat. It's just for them to get their hands dirty. I did make it so all of these people fighting are kind of entry level, not really a group yet. I'm being led by someone who's a little bit more associated with the chain lead them, so they might be more capable, but we'll see how the fight goes. So stay tuned for session 3, and we'll see what happens with our adventurers.